Welcome to this new video for learning Unity 3D. In this video, we're going to learn about the C# language, which is the programming language we use in Unity to develop our video games. I'm going to press Ctrl S to save the scene. This was the scene where we did our test to discover the software. I'm going to press Ctrl N to create a new scene, which will be a 3D type scene. And I'm going to introduce you to the C# language. To start with, I'm just going to create a cube. We're not going to use it right away, but I will need it to make some demonstrations to show you how the C# language will allow us to be able to interact with the game object. That's the goal of using this language. To be able to act on all the elements of our video game. So I'm just putting this cube here, and we'll use it later. We'll start with the basics of the C# language. If you remember, I created a script folder here. It's called C# scripts, and it's in there that we're going to create our scripts. To create a script, right-click, create C# script, or you select the folder, you click on the small plus, C# script. And here I will be able to create a script that I will call, for example, first script. I validate and double click on it, wait for it to compile. Each time you work with a C# script, it will compile. The software will analyze your code to see if there are any errors before it can be executed in Unity. We double click on it to edit, and as it's the first time I open a C# script, I am asked with which software I want to open this file. For me, it will be Microsoft Visual Studio 2019, which you have installed at the same time as Unity, and we can check open all C# files with this software. I click OK, and it will open Visual Studio, which is our development environment. That's where we'll write our program, our code. I'm zooming it in a little bit like this, so it's easier for you to see what I'm doing. And before anything else, I just want to say that if you ever want to use another software, even if I don't recommend you to use another software because it'll be easier for you to follow what I do using the same environment, but if you ever want to use another software, you can go to Edit Preferences. In Preferences, you go to External Tools, and there you see everything that has been installed for Android, Java, SDK, etc. You can see everything there. But what I want to show you is how to modify the software that you use to edit your code. Here, by default, in this version of Unity, it wasn't like that before, but here by default it's open by file extension. It means that it will open the appropriate software according to the file extension, which it did for me. But you can click to choose the software you want to use. You can use Microsoft Visual Studio 2019, or I have Visual Studio Code installed on my computer as well, and Unity has detected it. And I can open my C# script with VS Code if I want to. Or I can click on Browse to look for another software. So that's where you can make that change. But just so you know, when you install Visual Studio with Unity, normally everything is set up for you. You don't need to do anything. But I'm going to show you a very small manipulation. You can download Visual Studio Installer, which is a little bit like the Unity Hub, except that it's specific to Visual Studio. We see the Visual Studio installations we have. We can have several installations. We can have 2019, 2022, etc. We can click on Modify to modify our software installation. As I said, normally you don't need to do this, but just in case, if you don't have everything working properly, you can come here. And normally, game development with Unity should be checked. It allows you to install features specific to game development with Unity, and it will install all the necessary dependencies. Also, if you want to upgrade your version of .NET SDK, you can go into the individual components into .NET, and there you can see the latest version, which should be 4.8 here. This is where you're going to be able to update and install the different components. And then, when you check components at the bottom here, instead of having close, look, I'm checking something, I'm going to have modify. This will allow me to modify my Visual Studio installation. So that was just a little side note. I'm going to go back to the script we just created, And I'll start by describing what we have. We have imports here called by using. Using allows us to indicate that we are including certain functions. For example, using Unity engine allows us to add functions that we'll be able to use with C#, and these are functions specific to the Unity game engine. So this is typically allows us to access all the features of Unity. So the using are always at the top of the scripts. It always starts with using. We include everything we need to work. Then we have a public class first script, premier script, as the video was first made in French. First script being the name of my class, but also the name of my file, firstscript.cs. A class is in between braces. All the code that's in braces is your class. And the class is kind of the description of an object. If we create a car class, well, your class will describe the behavior of your car. What is its speed, what is its color, its functions. The functions can be accelerating, braking, turning, starting. So a class is really going to describe an object, the behavior of an object. And then we can use this object in our game. Colon mono behavior, it means that our class inherits from mono behavior. It means that our class will have the function of mono behavior, which is something specific to Unity, and it will allow us to have access to Unity functions, or it will allow us to attach our script to a Unity object. I'll show you. If I drag my script onto the cube, it works. I now look at the cube and we see that I have first script attached. Because it's a mono behavior, we can add it to our objects, and now our object is affected by the scripts. The object will have the behavior described in the script. Now, we don't have much described in the script since it's totally empty, so it won't change anything, but you can attach a script to an object. And most scripts will never run if they are not attached to objects. Most scripts, you have to put them in Unity, put them somewhere, anywhere, so that they can be active. You can attach the same script several times to several different objects. It's quite possible. If you create an enemy with artificial intelligence and you want to reuse that artificial intelligence, you can drag and drop the script and use it on multiple objects. If you want to attach a script so that it can run, but you don't want to put it on a particular object, you can do GameObject, create empty, which will create an emptied object, an object that has no visuals, that has nothing at all. And then we can drag the script onto our empty object and it will work. As soon as the script is attached to an object in the scene, it will run. You can uncheck to deactivate the script and then it won't run anymore. So we have our script that has been generated. We have the start function, which is the function that is triggered at the very beginning of the program. Just when the program starts, the start function will run and it will allow you to initialize certain things. Above we have a comment. A comment starts with /, then your text. This is something that will be totally ignored by the program. It's just to give instructions to the developers to describe your code. For example, we can say start runs when the game starts. Writing in French in the video. Updates. Loops. So this loops. So if your game runs at 60 frames per second, the update function will run 60 times per second. I'm doing Ctrl S to save the script, going back to Unity. I'm just going to make sure the camera can see both cubes, even if it doesn't really matter at the moment. I launch the game. Here the game runs, and we see that, well, we see nothing. We see that nothing happens. Nothing happens because we haven't written anything in our script. The first thing you have to learn to do when you create a C# script is to use the print function. The print function allows you to display a message on the screen. So you write print, then as it's a function you open and close brackets, as you can see on start. A function is something that executes a particular piece of code. So there are some functions that you only call once, but you can call other functions as many times as you like print. These are functions that you can reuse. Functions are declared by their name, then brackets, and between the brackets you can pass parameters. I say you can, you may, because it's optional. In any case, some functions take parameters, others do not, and some functions take optional parameters. In the case of print, you have to pass a parameter, which is the message you want to display on the screen. So here, print test, I want to display the word test on the screen. I put it between quote marks because it's a word. You have to put it in quote marks because it's a sentence, it's a text, it's a character strings, and so it's written in quote marks. We always end our instruction with semicolons. In C#, we end every call with a semicolon, otherwise it crashes, it won't work. Look, I forget a semicolon here, I save, I go into Unity, the script compiles, and then automatically I get an error. It shows that I have an error at the bottom. If I try to run the game, I'm told that all errors must be fixed before I can run the game. I click here, it shows me the console. There I can see the errors. I'm told there's an error in my first script, line 11, and it says semicolon expected, so a semicolon is missing. I double click and it will automatically place the cursor where the error was detected. I add the semicolon, Ctrl S, I return here, it compiles, wait a bit, and then the error disappears and I can start the project. So now the project has been launched. It doesn't look like much has changed, but if I click in the console is done here, or it's already open in my case here, and I can see test, which has been called 4 times. Why 4 times? Because I only wrote it twice. 4 times because my script is attached to this cube and this cube, so we're going to run it twice. I'm going to show you this. We're going to edit the script. I'm going to put test 1 and test 2, Ctrl S. We're going to go back to Unity. Now I'm just going to click on clear to clean the console. Well, cleared itself. I launch the game. And then we look, we have test 1, test 2, and then test 1, test 2. We can see that it's the same script that has been executed twice in 2 different places. So here's the first function that you need to know. It's the print function, which is very useful because it will allow you to debug your program. You will be able to print everywhere in your code to see where it crashes and to see what the values of this or that object are. You can really use this function to monitor everything in your code. So you've seen that it only runs once, but if I write print in my update function, you'll see that it will run much more than once. I'm going to run the game, so each time we have to wait for the script to compile. I run the game, and then we'll see what's going on in the console. And you can see that I have test update running forever. Look at the cursor there, it runs infinitely, 60 times per second, more. You can see that it has already been written over 900 times. It loops, never stops because the update function loops. In old game engines, you have an update function, which allows you to constantly update your game. Everything that needs to happen, happens. The characters that are walking around continue to walk around, the animations are happening, all the calculations of the 3D world are made. It's a function that runs in a loop and that allows you to refresh your game and your old virtual world. As a developer, you must know how to manage by yourself. Of course, I'm making a video training which aims to train you to Unity and to make you autonomous. But a video training will never cover all the knowledge. I've been using Unity for a very long time. At the time I'm making this video, at the time I'm recording, I've been using Unity on a daily basis for my work since 10 years, and every day I'm learning new things. Every day I'm confronted with problems that I don't have a solution for. I don't know everything by heart. It's impossible to know everything by heart. A whole life is not enough to learn everything. So you have to figure it out by yourself. You can't rely on my training to answer all your questions. I'm going to give you the keys to deal with like 90% of the problems, because fortunately when you have projects, 90% of the time it's always the same thing. In the video game you always have a character that walks, have objects to pick up, have a life bar, have enemies. In 90% of the cases, my training will meet your needs and will allow you to get through. But the other 10% of the time, you're going to have a problem that's specific to your project. So release something specific that only you want to do, and then you'll have to figure it out for yourself. So I'm going to teach you how to do it yourself. Just go to a search engine and ask your question. Like, how to show a message in Unity. We'll write Unity, how to show message in console, for example. Even if English is not your native language, it's better to write your questions in English, because that's where you'll find the most answers. If you take this course, your English level will allow you to do your research. We're going to search. So you have either the official Unity documentation, docs.unity, or answers.unity.com, which is the Unity forum. So these are two websites to put in your bookmarks. Or I'm going to look for the one you probably know, Stack Overflow, which is the absolute reference for developers. It's the most popular website on programming languages in like the galaxy, the universe even. So obviously Unity is specific to Unity. So here we say that to display a message, we can use the debug.log function, and we see that the parameter is the message. So it's a function that takes a message as a parameter, which is the string that we want to display. We can see how the function is used. We have some examples of code here, and then we have a whole bunch of examples that we can reproduce in our project. We can, for example, copy just this piece of code there. We'll copy debug.log hello plus gameObject.name. And there we are told that it's used to display a message with the name of the game object. Then we are going to test. Not to be polluted in our console, I'm going to remove the print in the function update, and there I'll make a debug.log hello plus gameObject.name. This is a concept that we haven't seen yet, but I'll explain it to you. It's called a concatenation. It allows you to add several strings together. GameObject.net in .name, in Unity, everything is a game object. The camera, the light, the cubes, so game object refers to the game object on which the script is placed. In this case, our script has been placed on the cube, and .name allows to access the name of the game object. This will return a character string, a text, and if I do hello plus another text, well, that will create a complete sentence. We're going to test. I go in Unity. I launch the project, and there, look, we have hello cube and we have hello cube 1. Since my script is executed twice, it's placed on cube and on cube 1. So here we succeeded in displaying a message in our console. So I presented you the print function, but the debug.log function does the same thing. I prefer print, which is shorter to write, and as I'm lazy, I use the shorter version. But you have debug.log, which is officially what you should use, which is a little bit more advanced, because with the debug class of Unity, you can make a debug warning to display messages in orange, or debug error to display them in red if you detect an error. This will allow you to color your messages in the console, but if you remember print, will be enough. So this is the official documentation of Unity. You must put this website in your bookmarks and refer to it often. We also have the Unity forum, which is a classic forum. Here you can ask questions and find answers. You can see the print function, you can see debug.log, you can see system.console.writeLine, which is a C# function, because in Unity we use C#, a C# specific to Unity with functions specific to Unity, but we can also use pure C#, and writeLine is a C# function that allows you to display a message in the console. And there people exchange, share bits of code, and you can find your answer on the Unity forum. And then Stack Overflow, which is the reference, there we'll also find debug.log. So you see that we find no matter which website you go to, we'll find how to display a message in the console. Well, now I have a little exercise for you. You're going to do a search, and what I want you to do is to write a little piece of code that disables the object. That disables the object that the script is attached to. What I'm asking you is that your program, your code, disables the cube here. And to disable an object in Unity, there's a little checkbox here, which indicates whether the object is active or inactive. So you can use these keywords in your search. And in your C# code, what I'm asking is that in the start function, you deactivate the current object. I'll let you pause the video while you do that on your end, and then I'll do it with you. Well, if you're watching the video, then I hope you've tried to do this by yourself. So I'm going to give you the solution. We're going to assume that I don't know how to do this at all. I'm going to do a search. Unity, how to disable object. And you can specify C# to say that you want a C# script. Wow. First thing seems interesting, how to deactivate or activate game object. I'll have a look at that one. Otherwise, there's a function here in the documentation, set active. That seems interesting too. Then if I continue searching, I'll find a lot of other results. So I'm going to look directly at what's in the answers. Wow, this is a bad example. The first answer doesn't seem relevant, but here we have your GameObject.setActive. So GameObject is our object. The dot gives access to a function. SetActive is a function that defines whether the object is active or not. It's a function that can take a parameter, and in this case the parameter is a boolean, true or false. And that would allow to activate or deactivate an object. I'll look in the Unity documentation to compare. We see GameObject.setActive, we seem to be on the right track. We see that it takes a boolean parameter, and the value is, do you want to activate or deactivate the object, knowing that true allows to activate the object, and that false allows to deactivate the game object. Full description, blah blah blah, an example of code. Well, then the code is rather complex as we never saw C#, we do not understand anything for the moment, but what interested us is just to see the use of setActive, and there I see that it is enough to make a .setActive false to deactivate the game object. Well, I'm going to try to work out how to do this. I go to my code, and then I test. I'll do GameObject dot setActive false. I save. I go back into Unity. I wait for it to compile. Here, we can see that we have the 2 cubes on the scene. I'm even going to duplicate this cube to have 3 cubes. And when I duplicate, it duplicates all the components. So that cube 2 here had the first script. I run the project. We wait. And then the 3 cubes disappear. I redo, I launch the project, and the 3 cubes disappear because that's what our code says. Our code says GameObject.setActive false. If you want to modify the name of your object, we know that the name of the object is GameObject.name. You just have to write GameObject.name, which allows you to get the value, and from there, using the equals sign, it allows you to modify the value. I can mark, for example, cuckoo, in quote marks. Remember to finish with a semicolon. In quote marks because it's a string, Control S, I return here. So you can see that I have cube, cube1 and cube2. I launch the project. The cubes disappear and I have cuckoo, cuckoo, and cuckoo here 3 times. So we have our objects that have been renamed. And now I can reactivate them manually, no problem, because doing a set active false simply unchecks that box. So there you have it. You have written your first line of C# code. You know how to display a message, access the name of the object, and disable the object so that it's hidden. Deactivating an object can be useful, for example, to make a door disappear, an obstacle, to make an object that has been picked up disappear. It can be useful in many cases in the video game world. And above all, what you can do now is to search on the internet to find a solution to your problem. In general, you type your question in the search engine, and the first or the second link will bring you your answer. As soon as you have a question, you do a search, you will get your answer on how to do this or that with Unity. And you can easily find information with the forum, the documentation, or Stack Overflow. With all this, you should be able to do pretty much anything you want in Unity. So that was a little introduction video to C#. We're going to continue discovering this programming language because there's a lot to know and learn. See you in the next video to talk about it.